Hey ADHDers and I's, how are you doing? You're here with me, ADHD Girl, on the ADHD and Me podcast. On today's podcast episode, we're going to be talking about all things work related when it comes to ADHD. And to help me to do that, I'm going to be talking to the ADHD career expert, Shell Mendelson. Shell has been through her own experience of having ADHD in the workplace. Now she's written an amazing course book on the subject, as well as 3 articles for Attitude magazine. She also coaches people with ADHD to achieve more in their careers. Yes, hopefully we're going to get the answers to some of those sought-after questions about how to manage your ADHD in the workplace. So stay tuned and see if you can pick up some tips for you or those you know with ADHD. I'm here with Shell Mendelson. I'm so excited to have her on the show because it's not something I'd heard of before. So I'm fascinated by her story and getting an insight in how to kind of thrive with ADHD in the workplace. So welcome, Shell. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you. You sound amazing. Yes, so I've been doing this work for 35 years.
Wow.
Okay. I was trained originally by the guy who wrote What Color is Your Parachute, which is a book that's fairly well known, but not everybody knows it. He's like the grandfather of career counseling. So he was my mentor for many years. And after getting my master's degree, I worked as a vocational rehabilitation counselor, which is what I was trained in. ADHD was not even recognized at that time. It was so long ago, or it wasn't something that was like mainstream the way it is now. And I worked within the workers' compensation system, which was a system that after 10 years of it, I said, no, I can't do this anymore. It just started to wear on me, and I was still undiagnosed, by the way. And I'll tell you about when I got my diagnosis, which is very later in life. So I started seeking out ways that I can use my skills, stay in my foundational field is education, and counseling and coaching is within that. So I wanted to continue with the career work because I love the whole idea of careers and helping people to make decisions about careers and what the right career, learn enough about themselves to not want to go back and do something that's just kind of a shiny object type of job where I fit these skills and I don't particularly like this, but I'm going to get it because I can make money at it. And then you kind of become what's called a job beggar along the way, get yourselves into these positions. So what I did was to help people overcome that and empower them and give them confidence so that they can just be more in control of what it is, where they work, even if they wanted to work on their own, do some kind of business or self-employment or whatever, but really understand who they were first and be able to articulate that and everything. So that was kind of what I did up until the point where I had this brainstorm where all of a sudden you have an idea. Well, every person with ADHD has loads of ideas. We have tons of ideas about what we want to do. Some hit harder than others, right?
Yeah.
And it just hit me one morning that my son, who was young at the time and very artistic, was not getting enough art programs or wasn't getting the art in the school system that what I felt was comfortable would provide him what he needed in terms of learning about art and feeling confident in his ability to do art, right? So I had a friend who was an artist, and my idea was to create a company called Kids Art, which is a children's art franchise, went on to become an international children's art franchise.
Wow.
Still is, now owned by one of our original franchisees. But this was many, many years ago. And it took me off my path of working in the career field, which I love. I always felt comfortable in that. It was always something I was enthusiastic about. And the part I liked about creating this company was the creative part, putting it together, right?
Yes.
Bringing all the people together, figuring problem solving, strategizing, figuring out how to get it out there. That was all fantastic for me. So I veered off from my work as a career counselor until it became a corporation. And I never liked working in corporate environments. And suddenly here I had literally created it. And again, I was undiagnosed. So as many people who are undiagnosed, we can act out sometimes in terms of when we're not happy, and we can blurt a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Say things word vomit. We become distracted easily. We're not happy. We're just wondering what the heck's going on, right? Well, the truth was I was bored out of my mind. I didn't like it anymore. I didn't want to be the founder, CEO, any of that stuff. And I felt trapped. So everything kind of blew up. It blew up. This was one of my biggest learning lessons in life that I now pass on to the people that I work with about what not to do. Okay. When you're starting a company, I left, right? And so what happened, I went literally crawling over to a book. A friend of mine who's a therapist had sent me 2 years before, and I put it in the drawer and said, oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it turned out she had a son who had ADHD, so she knew what it looked like. And she never spoke to me about it. She just sent me this book. And so I left it hidden for a couple of years until this kind of breakdown happened. And when crawling over to it, I knew exactly where it was, finally read it. And that was a big aha moment that many of us get when we realize, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy.
Yeah. Your friend was giving you a subtle hint.
Subtle, yeah. Yeah, subtle. And I didn't even talk to her about it because that was my ADD. I just got distracted, went on. And, I was with the company. I was working like 14-hour days and I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff until everything fell apart. So I did get the diagnosis, and that was a big relief. And that's one of the things I tell people. If it looks like a duck, go get a diagnosis.
Yeah. I always say, though, that I think that having that ADHD label, it's not like the finish. It's more at the beginning of a massive journey.
It's the beginning. It's the beginning. And it explains everything. You can go through all your emotions with it. Yeah, that was the beginning for me. And that was when I also went back to working in my field of career counseling and coaching. And I had the one client I had was the son of the mother of the woman who sent me the book, who had the ADHD.
Oh, wow.
Yes, she wrote me and she said, yes, it was the first circle. And she wrote me and she said, I need your help. I need your help. My son she knew I was really great at what I did. I mean, she always acknowledged that. And as a therapist, she would send me her clients. And she said, my son needs help. So I started working with him again. And it was like, oh my gosh, so much fun. It was all of a sudden I was back, I was back to doing what I love.
I love stories like this because it almost sounded like you needed a career break to be able to learn what you needed to learn, to go back to your specialty. And then help the person who'd helped you. Like, wow.
Great observation. That's absolutely right. And it was such a big lesson for me. It really was. And then getting the diagnosis and then and then it was also the decision to work exclusively with neurodivergent clients exclusively. So it's been almost 15 years.
Wow.
And during that time, I just got more and more clarity that we need something different. We need something that's much more step-by-step, much more break it down, graphic, colorful. You see in the book. Do you have the book?
Yes,
book,
I
right?
did. I thought it was amazing. Yeah, and so relatable as well. So like yourself, I've done so many different jobs over the years, lots of different qualifications until I found jobs that were more suited to me as a person.
Yeah.
Do you think there are certain jobs that suit or certain careers that suit people with ADHD, or do you think it's very much an individual thing and it's more about being self-aware?
Yeah, no, there's no such thing as a top 10 or 100 jobs for people with ADHD. That's a complete myth. So I'm going to bust that myth right away.
Right.
You see how the book goes. You break it down and it's very much individual. And people I work with, their interests are as varied as anybody else that you would meet, right? It's really what you're attracted to, what you're energized by, what you can really focus on, something you look forward to, learning about, something you can expand with and grow. It's about managing, and I'm not perfect. I'm a lot older too, and I think at some point you just learn to manage it a little bit better.
Absolutely.
And you also get to the point, I think, where you just don't care what other people think as much. That's been true for me for almost my whole career, though. You know, even when I had jobs working for other people, I was always like, I got to do it my way. And because I was doing what I loved and I did it so well, they would accommodate me. It would be them just like, what do you need? You know, oh, I need to work at home part of the time. And I did that. I did the original hybrid kind of thing, God, 30 years ago or something. And I never looked back. You know, I've always been very clear that there's, you know, I have red lines all over the place. I will not do things in a way that detracts from what I really know I love doing.
And that's really good.
As a result, I do the best job at it. You know, I am able to just give people information now.
Now, I know our listeners would love to hear your thoughts on this question because I think it's such a tricky subject. Do you think ADHDers or any neurodivergent person, I suppose, should share their condition, their ADHD with their employer? And at what point should they share it? Or do you think that's a very individual thing?
Well, you'll notice in the book, there's a chapter 3 called Working Conditions. Now, in that's what people need to do before they make that decision, right? They need to really figure out what it is that they need accommodation-wise. And and whether or not this employer is likely to provide it for them, and to be able to ask the questions. It's a kind of a long answer, but and I'll keep it short. But you've got to do this self-accommodation work first, and feel the confidence in knowing that you're not a job beggar. You're actually going to be asking them questions to make sure that they're the best fit for you.
Part of the book really inspired me because you're absolutely right. And I feel like if I'd have read your book about 10 years ago and I could have saved myself the trouble of working in such a toxic environment because I had a job and it wasn't just me. It wasn't like discrimination in the sense. It was a very toxic working environment for a lot of people. But I think that's something I never considered when I was going for the interview. How are these people going to help me as I manage my condition? And I really wish I had because it's so important.
Yeah. And did you feel comfortable asking them about things? Like, let me put that question back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, would you have felt comfortable divulging your ADHD at that point?
I did when I started to struggle. I mean, it probably wasn't the best way of doing it. When I started to struggle, that was when I disclosed it. But by that point, I think they were just like, we don't care. We're not going to do anything. There's not enough awareness. We'd rather just hire somebody else who can just do the job. And I feel like in the UK, there is I don't know if this is the case in America, but there's very much a work ethic of work. It doesn't matter what work it is. You get on with it. No excuses. You just do it. And I think, unfortunately, that can be very detrimental to people who are neurodivergent or do have ADHD.
It's exactly the reason I wrote this book and the reason I would do the work I do. You just pretty much said it in a nutshell. It's to empower people to have all the information, know what you want, be able to articulate what you want before you go looking for these positions that even though you may be able to tick some of those boxes they're looking for, it needs to go the other way too, where that environment is the correct one for you. And how are you going to know? First, you don't know what you want and you can't articulate it. You've got to know first.
Yeah, I think that sounds like one of my other questions, though, because I was going to ask you, do you think most employers are well equipped to deal with ADHD? Because I know there's a bit of a cultural perception, I think, that's different in the UK to America. Do you think that in the USA, people are more accepting of ADHD? Do you think they're more willing to make accommodations? Or do you think it's the opposite? Or do you think it's just something that comes with having the awareness?
I think we have a long way to go. Though I just have to tell you this really great story with one of the people in my masterclass, who's this young man who's 23 years old. He comes from a very supportive family, right? And his family know wealthy people and everything. And he's lucky to be in these circles. And he said he connected with this one guy who's he's like a big employer. I mean, huge employer. And he told him he had ADHD. And the guy said, oh, so many talented people with ADHD that are out there. He got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, I want to somehow interview this guy, find out the other side, how we can. I've asked him to put me in touch with him because you don't hear that very often. So that is not the norm. All right.
No.
And I think now with the emphasis on corporate America and how just everything is shifting now in this country, I guess how can you not know about some of the things going on in this country? Well, that is a lot of it is because people are kind of bought into this corporate way of life, feel like if they're not doing what their bosses want, there's something wrong with them. You know what I mean? And so that, as far as ADHD, if you don't have somebody like this guy who says, let's just harness your talent, let's figure out where you're going to work the best. Let's put you in the department that
because that takes
you're going to
time
thrive
and patience and understanding, doesn't it?
It does on the part of the employer. That's why I like to do it from the employee position of empowering yourself with this kind of information of knowing who you are, knowing what you want, knowing the kind of conditions you're going to thrive in, being very self-aware and being able to say, under these conditions, you will have the best employee ever.
Oh, wow.
Under these conditions, and be able to say a couple of what those conditions are. And if nothing's going to be perfect when you work for someone else, the only time you can really make it work for you in a perfect way is when you're working on your own. And even then, we both need a lot of support, don't we?
Yeah, right. We were just talking about that before the actual podcast recording, about how we need all these different systems to be able to function.
Yes, we need people. And I have a virtual assistant that I can't live without. And that took me going through a few to get there. They don't have to have ADHD, but they have to really understand what working with a person with ADHD is about.
So I want to talk about this amazing book of yours, Unlocking Your Career Path, a course for neurodivergent adults and teens, because I read it and I was absolutely blown away by it. I mean, there is nothing out there like it. And I wish, like I said earlier, I wish I'd have had something like this when I was starting out and trying to find my career. Can you give a sense of what people with ADHD can gain from it?
All through the book, what I call the safekeeping self, it's just straight up outside influence, generally from people that you care about, people like your spouse or your significant other or your parents or your best friend, or, who go, well, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And I've got a person who, have you look into this? And you might want, all these distractions that we feel obligated to follow up with half the time that will take us off track because we're people pleasers, right? So the safekeeping self is that part of us that wants to kind of spring back into that status, what I call status quo position, where nothing's changed. You don't move forward. And so even when people say, I have all kinds of ideas, but I don't do anything, that's staying in the status quo position.
Wow.
Because you could pick one and just go with it.
Yeah.
But then you've got all these outside influences. So the safekeeping self is that part that will say, answer this question this way and not this way. Because what if you get into something and you're not going to make enough money?
Yeah.
Money's always the first thing.
It's almost like self-correction, but not from yourself.
Right. Exactly. But if you look back on every aspect of our lives, we are impacted by safekeeping self. In career, making those kinds of decisions, we are strongly influenced by it. So I talk about it all through the book. In the work I do, it is like, what is coming up for you that is safekeeping right now? What is safekeeping? And anytime you answer a question, was that me genuinely, or was it the outside influences coming in, safekeeping?
Wow.
So that's such a big concept that people ignore. And I've always heard from past clients that was the most significant piece for them, was to learn how to understand when it's happening and to nail it when it's there.
That's what I very much felt when I read your book. It wasn't just about careers. It was like a journey of self-awareness and discovering who you are before you discover what your career could potentially be.
Yes. And I mean, I think if you ask most people what do you want in a career? Describe what you want. How many people do you think could answer that question?
Exactly. I mean, that's the part that really struck me. Even when I was reading your introduction, the first thing you say is the question you need to ask yourself is, what do you want from work? I just found that so empowering because so many people don't ask that question. Or if they do, it's just like, oh, I just want money. Because that's what we're programmed to say. I need a job.
That's
I
what
need
we're
an
programmed.
8 to 5 job. But actually, it's about you getting as much out of an employer as they're getting out of you as a person and your skills.
Yeah. And I mean, this is true universally for both neurotypical and neurodivergent. However, if you're neurodivergent, you can go along with that scenario of status quo for a long time. Some people can do it for a while. But then you hit a wall. Then it becomes unsustainable.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about the many walls I've hit throughout my job careers.
Exactly. I mean, that's what happened to me with kids art. I hit the wall. And when I hit the wall, everything fell apart and blew up. And that's kind of what happens. That's when people get put on those. We talked about performance improvement programs. That's when they get put on those. Yeah. So
because we were talking about the fact it's not really an improvement plan, is it?
It's not an improvement. It's a how do we get this person out plan.
Yeah. How do we get them in line and get them to do what we want?
Yeah. But a lot of these plans have nothing to do with your actual job, right?
Exactly.
So they add on all these deadlines and these tasks that you have to do that have nothing.
It's more like they give you what they expect, but not how you're expected to do it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a setup for failure for many people, especially with ADHD. So with ADHD, if you don't love what you're doing, at some point it's going to break down. You're going to hit the wall. So that could be a good thing for us. You know, I mean, it sounds horrible to say you hit the wall and then all these horrible things happen. It just brings you back to if I'm not doing what I really enjoy doing, what the heck am I doing here? I mean, I'm getting bored. I'm distracted. I'm quitting. You know, I'm getting called on the carpet. I'm making little mistakes. I'm doing all these things. And why is that? When that starts happening, it's when things start breaking down and you're no longer in the right fit. The work is not the right fit for you anymore.
And then we always blame ourselves, don't we? Because we have like this shame spiral. If anything goes wrong, oh, it's me. Like I'm the kind of bad egg because that's what's kind of been drained into us our entire lives. Because with ADHD, you really struggle to meet other people's expectations anyway. So you're always made to feel like a failure in some sense.
Yes.
So as soon as anything goes wrong, you're just like, it's my fault, you know, and then, but actually sometimes employees, a lot of the time, sometimes they set unrealistic expectations, not just for ADHDers, but for people in general.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's really important to really understand who you are at a much deeper level, not to compare yourself with other people, but to really be honest with yourself. And that honesty is the toughest part of it.
Yeah.
Because that's the part where you have to sort of close off all those external voices and all that propaganda that we get about how you should be doing your job. A lot of us don't like taking orders from people, for one thing. We don't like being told what to do. Come on, let's be real.
No, I know. I'm not in denial here. That's completely me.
We don't like somebody telling us, now you've got to do it this way. And
one of the things I absolutely loved in the book was this idea of the smile file. I thought that was so lovely. And I thought this is something every ADHDer should have because we're always so hard on ourselves.
You know what? That was one of those other things that I woke up with, just like I woke up with the name, the smile file. What is it? I just want to take a bunch of pictures of things that make me smile, you know?
So lovely when you see people thriving in their careers, particularly people with ADHD thriving in their careers, because it kind of makes you think, I want that.
Well, and people with ADHD who thrive in their careers, the reason they're thriving is because they love what they do.
Exactly.
And when you love what you do, you naturally do the best job at it.
Yeah.
I went from and I tell the story in my 20s, I was fired from job after job after.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
As I was a legal secretary, which I always knew I hated it. But I mean, there are people, I had friends who were really good at it and hated it, you know, really were able to do the work and focus in on getting this stuff done. But I just was very rebellious. I didn't like doing that kind of work. So I was fired over and over again, but it did wreak havoc on my confidence. Even though I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
just the act of not being able to do something I knew I could do.
Yeah. It's that shame spiral again of, oh, it must be my fault.
Yeah. And then when I went through, I finally got my master's and started working in a field that I enjoyed and started doing it. I literally went from getting fired for job after job to becoming a rock star.
Wow.
In my professional career. You know, it's about providing information that helps move people forward. It's inspiring them, uplifting them, empowering them in so many ways. That's what real teaching is to me.
Yeah, and I feel like
Real
that really
education.
summarizes your book as well, empowering. I really felt like that's what it was because it was
Thank
so
you.
relatable. And I think like everyone should have a copy who's neurodivergent because it would give them a real confidence boost.
Really takes an employer who understands the value of the person with the ADHD brain and how important it is to find the right fit for that person within their corporation.
All the people who drove society forward, all the people who made the big changes, they were progressive thinkers. Because if they wouldn't have been, nothing new would have happened. So we're kind of needed.
And not only that, but people with ADHD are the movers and shakers. We're the ones that invent all the products and create all the services and all the, like the franchises. We're the ones that put stuff together, you know, that come up with the ideas to do all this stuff. And how valuable is that?
I feel like you've already given so much important advice for people who have ADHD in the workplace. But if you could leave them with one kind of food for thought or one piece of advice at the end of the podcast, what would it be?
Articulate what you want. Be able to understand what it is that you want. And if you don't know what you want, that's when you need to write, like make the effort, you know, to go through this kind of a process to figure that out.
You should get your book on.
I prefer people, if you can, go to my website because I'm offering also the fillable version.
Oh, wow.
The fillable PDF. So people can actually download it and just do it on their computers.
Which is much
so they don't
easier
have
for ADHDers, let's be honest.
Yeah. So that's on my website. So I think I'll keep it easy. passion2tocareer.com and just click on course book. Can I also talk about a little bit about the notebook?
Yes, of course.
It's just lined paper, but it's got tabs that follow the planets.
Oh, wow.
So
it's like a valuable accessory for going through your book.
It is. So it has like each one of them, and it has a place for journaling about your safekeeping self and also just journaling, doing the exercises. Like the bundle of that is on Amazon.
Ah, okay.
Of the book, and the notebook is on Amazon.
Oh.
The regular book is on Amazon too, but again, you can get the fillable and everything else on my website.
Oh, wow. That's great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
Well, thanks for listening, ADHDers and allies. I hope you picked up some useful tips about navigating a career with ADHD. I know I found Shell's knowledge really relatable and practical too. Hopefully in the future, more employers will see what a massive difference ADHDers can make to their companies if you're just given the right conditions that work for us. Join us in next month's episode where we'll be talking with an ADHD coach who'll be helping us to understand about how to navigate relationships with ADHD, including the parent-child relationship. Take care, everyone.